In a small town, a local car mechanic named Derek was known for his less than honest business practices. So, when an unsuspecting woman, Lisa, brought her car in for a simple repair, Derek saw an opportunity to make some easy money. He convinced Lisa that her car needed several expensive and unnecessary repairs, and she, trusting his expertise, agreed to the costly services. However, the next day, Derek's choice to deceive Lisa led to an unexpected turn of events that left him regretting his actions. As he opened his shop the next morning, Derek was met with a surprise that made him realize the gravity of his deceitful decision. Derek did not think much about his actions from yesterday. All he knew was that his bank account today was a little bit bigger than it should have been, and that gullible Lisa was none the wiser. He was smiling to himself, content that he just kept getting away with these little scams. People in this tiny town simply had no choice but to come to him. In the town, he was basically the only mechanic. There were a couple of people with knowledge of cars and small businesses who could make repairs around, but he was the only one with a big garage in which he could make the more difficult repairs. People who needed difficult repairs were often desperate for help, and could easily be convinced that there was much more wrong with their cars. Now, Derek had been using this to his advantage for years now, and had even been actively working against other people trying to start a garage in the town. And he had been successful with this. Poor Lisa had only been the latest victim in a long line of customers he scammed. But what Derek did not know was that Lisa was not somebody he should have been messing with. When the clock hit 10, Derek opened up his shop for business. He had some appointments scheduled for the day, and he was also still working on Lisa's car. He had told her that he would need to have the car for at least 4 days to finish everything, while in reality, he could probably be done with it this morning. And so, he calmly started working on the car, waiting for his first appointment. About an hour passed, and Derek started to get a bit confused. His first appointment should have been here 30 minutes ago, but they had not shown up yet, and also had not called to cancel or something. He was nearly finished with Lisa's car, and wanted to start on his new task. And so, he decided to call his appointment himself. For the first couple of tries, the phone was not being answered at all. Derek even realized that he was purposefully being pressed away. He was stumped. Not many customers had dared to do this to him, as they were very much dependent on his service. And he had customers enough, so he had no problem putting this person on his blacklist. Derek was never going to help them again when they called for a problem. That would teach them a lesson. Derek tossed his phone into a corner out of frustration and went back to working on Lisa's car. But he had finished it in only about 20 more minutes. He probably only spent a third of the time he had billed Lisa on this car. He almost started to feel bad. But now he had nothing to do, really. At least, nothing that was going to make him any money. He could clean his garage or something, but he really did not feel like doing that. His next appointment was only in about an hour, and so Derek just decided to get some early lunch while he waited. But he had no idea how big of a mistake that would end up being. He was probably only away for 15 minutes, 20 tops. The supermarket was very close to the garage, and he did not linger there or anything. But when he returned to his workplace, it looked like he had been away for hours. He could see that there was something very wrong from a mile away, as he was sure that he closed up the garage door. But it was wide open now. Derek dropped his groceries and ran towards the building. He could see that it was a mess, even more than it was before. It looked like the lock had been broken open with a lot of force. But there was no trace of the person who had done this. Whoever was being this knew what they were doing, and were in and out of the garage very quickly. Derek's heart sank as he surveyed the scene. The garage door, usually secured, stood ajar, inviting a cold morning breeze into the cluttered space. His mind raced with possibilities and fears, a stark contrast to the routine calm of starting his workday. The quiet chaos whispered of trouble, setting a somber tone for what was to come. Derek's usual morning optimism was replaced with a knot of apprehension in his stomach, signaling the start of an unexpectedly troubling day. With a deep breath, Derek began combing through the garage, his eyes scanning for anything amiss. Tools lay scattered in a manner he didn't recall leaving them, yet nothing seemed missing at first glance. The paradox of the untouched yet disturbed space deepened his confusion. Each cabinet checked, and each tool accounted for, only added to the growing mystery. The lack of clear theft did little to ease the unease that had firmly taken root. Determined not to let the intrusion derail his entire day, Derek set about tidying the disarray. The task of cleaning, usually mundane, now felt like a reclaiming of his own violated space. As he organized tools and swept away the debris of the break-in, a semblance of normalcy began to creep back into the garage. Yet, the shadow of the morning's discovery lingered, a silent reminder of vulnerability amidst the order. As the hours ticked by, the absence of the day's first clients became increasingly apparent. Derek's anticipation turned to disappointment, then to concern. The garage, typically buzzing with the sounds of activity and conversation, remained eerily silent. The phone, expected to ring with inquiries or rescheduling requests, sat mute. This unusual quietude amplified Derek's feelings of isolation, leaving him to ponder the reasons behind this sudden change in his daily rhythm. The day's stillness was unlike any Derek had experienced before. The lack of appointments, the absence of phone calls, it was as if the town itself had forgotten about Derek's garage. This break in routine was disconcerting, hinting at something more than just a slow business day. The silence felt almost deliberate, a stark reminder of how quickly circumstances could shift, leaving Derek to question what had led to this sudden and unsettling calm. In a bid to reclaim some sense of productivity, Derek dialed Lisa's number, the phone's cool surface a stark contrast to his anxious grip. "Your car's ready," he announced, with a practiced ease that belied the turmoil of the day. It was a small attempt to puncture the day's eerie quiet, a step towards normalcy in a day that was anything but normal. Throughout the day, Derek clung to routine as a lifeline amidst the unsettling silence. He moved with the deliberate motions of his daily tasks, each tool returned to its place with a precision that matched the normal days. This semblance of order was a facade, a thin veneer over the confusion that lay beneath, as he sought to navigate the day's uncharacteristic stillness with a semblance of control. As the sun began its descent, Derek's reflections turned somber. The garage, usually a hive of activity, had seen no one but him. This departure from the usual bustle weighed heavily, casting a shadow over what had always been a place of purpose and livelihood. The absence of clients was a silent testament to the day's oddity, a puzzle whose pieces didn't seem to fit. The sound of footsteps heralded Lisa's approach, breaking the day's monotonous silence. Her presence was a ripple in the stagnant air of the garage, bringing with it a hint of the normalcy Derek had been missing. With expectations of improvements, her arrival marked a potential turning point in the day, an opportunity for Derek to finally put his skills to use and perhaps mend more than just a car. But optimism faded quickly when the ignition sputtered and failed. The car, which should have been a showcase of Derek's mechanical expertise, now stood as a monument to unforeseen complications. Frustration clouded both their faces, a shared disappointment that deepened the day's gloom. The car's failure to start was not just a mechanical setback, but a symbolic one, highlighting the day's cascade of unmet expectations. Derek's cheeks burned with humiliation as Lisa's car, which he had assured was in perfect condition, now betrayed more faults than when it first arrived. His attempts at reassurance fell flat, each failed startup echoing his dwindling credibility. Standing before Lisa, Derek felt his professional facade crumble, exposing a vulnerability he wasn't prepared to confront. This wasn't just a mechanical failure. It was a personal defeat. The incident with Lisa's car sent a jolt through Derek's confidence, shaking the very foundation of his self-assurance. Questions swirled in his mind, each one chipping away at his expertise. Had he overlooked something critical? Was his skill not as reliable as he believed? This moment of doubt crept into the crevices of his professional identity, threatening the trust he had built in his own capabilities. As the garage quieted and Lisa left, Derek's thoughts spiraled. The day's earlier break-in, once a background concern, now seemed ominously relevant. Could there be a connection between the intrusion and the car's sudden issues? Logic said no, but the timing was too coincidental. With no concrete evidence, Derek wrestled with his suspicions, the day's events weaving a complex web of doubt and paranoia. That night, Derek lay awake, the day's failures replaying in his mind. The image of Lisa's disappointed face, the sound of her car refusing to start, and the memory of the morning's violated garage merged into a relentless loop. Sleep evaded him, as did peace. The potential link between the break-in and the car's problems gnawed at him, a puzzle he couldn't solve, but couldn't ignore either. With the dawn came a decision. Exhausted and desperate for answers, Derek picked up the phone to call the police. Reporting the break-in felt like admitting defeat, yet the mystery of the day's events left him no choice. He detailed his suspicions of sabotage, a theory that felt more like grasping at straws. Yet, sharing his fears with the authorities marked a step towards unraveling the day's unsettling mysteries. Officer meticulously combed through the garage, their presence a stark contrast to the solitude Derek had faced. He recounted the day's events, his voice steady, but tinged with an undercurrent of anxiety. The possibility of being targeted for sabotage loomed large in his narrative, each detail shared in hopes of uncovering something overlooked, something that might explain the unexplainable. Under the weight of the officer's scrutiny, Derek's resolve wavered. The truth spilled forth, admissions of inflated charges, a practice born of necessity rather than greed. He braced for judgment, his confession exposing the potential motive for the sabotage he suspected. The admission was a gamble, a hope that understanding his actions might shed light on the day's dark turn of events. The officer's search yielded little. No fingerprints, no forced entry signs beyond the initial break-in, and nothing to directly tie the disturbance to deliberate sabotage. Their findings, or lack thereof, left Derek grappling with the reality of his situation. The absence of evidence to support his claims cast a shadow of doubt on his suspicions, leaving the mystery of the day unsolved and unsettlingly open-ended. The skepticism in the officer's eyes as Derek admitted to overcharging was a mirror reflecting his own doubts back at him. Their muted reaction, a blend of professional detachment and implicit judgment, underscored his isolation. At that moment, Derek felt the weight of his solitary position, caught between the consequences of his actions and the elusive truth of the day's events. Turning his attention back to Lisa's car, Derek's heart sank further. New issues surfaced with every inspection, complexities that seemed to multiply in the shadow of his earlier admissions. Each malfunction felt like a taunt, a reminder of his vulnerability. The suspicion of sabotage lingered an unproven theory that added layers of frustration to an already perplexing situation. Alone, with the echo of the police's departure still lingering, Derek turned his focus back to the car. Each issue he uncovered seemed less like routine wear and more like a series of calculated disruptions. With meticulous care, he traced lines, checked connections, and tested systems, seeking anomalies in the familiar mechanisms. The complexity of the problems hinted at an underlying cause he couldn't yet grasp. The solitude of the garage felt heavier after the police left, their skepticism adding to Derek's burden of doubt. Questions without answers circled in his mind, each unturned bolt and unexplained malfunction fueling his worry. The fear of unresolved issues with Lisa's car loomed large, a symbol of his broader fears of failure and the potential collapse of his livelihood. In the quiet, Derek found himself reflecting on the path that led him here. The overcharging, a tactic born of desperation, now seemed a poor choice in the harsh light of consequence. Recognizing the impact of his actions, Derek understood the need for a shift, a realignment of his business practices with the integrity he aspired to embody. This moment of introspection marked a turning point in his personal and professional journey. Resolved to make amends, Derek renewed his focus on Lisa's car with a sense of purpose. It wasn't just about fixing a vehicle anymore, it was about repairing a piece of himself, restoring the trust he'd eroded with his actions. Each repair, no matter how minor, became a step toward redemption, a testament to his commitment to change and do right by those he'd wronged. Derek approached the car's issues with a resolve he hadn't felt in years. The challenges, though daunting, spurred a determination fueled by the desire to prove his worth, not just as a mechanic, but as a man seeking redemption. With each problem solved, he not only moved closer to restoring the car to its proper state, but also to rebuilding the foundation of his business on more honest grounds. In the enveloping silence of the empty garage, Derek felt the full weight of his isolation. The absence of the usual hum of activity underscored the reality of his situation. Each quiet moment, a reminder of the trust he'd shattered. This silence wasn't just the absence of sound, it was a space for introspection, a harsh mirror reflecting the consequences of his past choices. As Derek delved into the mechanical heart of Lisa's car, he realized he was engaging in a deeper form of repair. Each adjustment and correction became a metaphor for his commitment to change. It was a painstaking process, not just of mending a car, but of rebuilding the integrity of his work and the trust of those he'd misled. The garage, once a place of deception, began to feel like a crucible for transformation. The empty garage served as a stark reminder of Derek's fall from grace. The absence of customers, once an unthinkable scenario, now reflected the erosion of community trust. This solitude was not peaceful. It was a testament to the cost of his actions, a daily confrontation with the need to rebuild not just cars, but relationships and reputations tarnished by years of neglect. With the final turn of his wrench, Derek completed the repairs on Lisa's car. Standing back, he surveyed his work, allowing himself a moment of cautious optimism. This car, once a symbol of his failings, now represented a step towards redemption. In its restored state, Derek saw not just a machine made whole, but a beacon of hope for his own journey back from disgrace. With the car now ready, Derek awaited Lisa's return with a mix of anticipation and apprehension. This moment would be more than just a client picking up her car. It would be a test of whether his efforts toward change were enough. As he paced the now clean floor of his garage, Derek hoped for a positive outcome, a sign that redemption was possible and that this chapter would mark a new beginning in his life. Lisa approached her car with a mix of hope and skepticism. As she circled the vehicle, inspecting Derek's work, her expression softened. The car, once a source of frustration, now gleamed under the garage lights, its issues seemingly rectified. Her cautious optimism was palpable, a silent acknowledgement of the effort Derek had invested. Yet, an undercurrent of reservation remained, hinting at deeper concerns yet to be addressed. After a thorough inspection, Lisa turned to Derek, her demeanor shifting. "Can we talk?" she asked, her voice steady, but revealing an underlying tension. The request, simple yet loaded, signaled unfinished business. Derek nodded, steeling himself for a conversation he knew was inevitable. This was about more than just the car. It was about confronting the past and paving the way forward. The air was thick with anticipation as Lisa voiced her grievances. "I trusted you," she began, her disappointment evident. The conversation, while uncomfortable, was necessary. Derek listened, a knot forming in his stomach, as Lisa detailed the impact of his earlier deceit. This wasn't just a rebuke, it was a mirror reflecting the consequences of his actions, a moment of reckoning that had been long overdue. Derek's response came from a place of humility. "I was wrong," he admitted, his voice laden with the weight of his realization. The admission was not easy, but necessary for healing to begin. He understood now more than ever the value of honesty and integrity, not just in business, but in life. This moment of contrition marked a pivotal step in Derek's journey towards redemption. The conversation, though fraught with tension, laid the groundwork for a new beginning. Derek's acknowledgement of his past errors and his commitment to change resonated with Lisa. It was a crucial step towards rebuilding trust, not just between them, but with the broader community he had wronged. This dialogue, difficult as it was, symbolized a turning point, a chance for Derek to redefine his legacy on terms of transparency and integrity. In the aftermath of their frank discussion, Derek and Lisa found a tentative common ground. Derek's pledge to rectify his mistakes was met with cautious acceptance from Lisa. This promise, laden with the weight of his past misdeeds, signified a commitment to integrity moving forward. Though the air between them remained charged with the history of betrayal, it also held a fragile hope for redemption. Alone with his thoughts, Derek pondered the depth of the conversation. The path to regaining the trust he had squandered appeared daunting, yet undeniably necessary. This reflection was not just about remorse. It was a catalyst for genuine resolve. Derek understood that earning back respect would require time, patience, and unwavering dedication to change. The journey ahead was long, but his determination was steadfast. Inspired by his dialogue with Lisa, Derek took tangible steps toward transforming his business ethos. Transparency became his new mantra: clear pricing, honest communication, and no hidden fees. These changes were more than policy adjustments. They were manifestations of Derek's newfound commitment to ethical practices. Each decision reflected his desire to not only amend past wrongs, but to forge a legacy of integrity. As Derek enacted these changes, word of his efforts slowly permeated the community. Initial skepticism was gradually replaced by cautious optimism. People watched, curious yet hopeful, as Derek navigated this transformation. The community, once bitten, remained wary but intrigued by the possibility of genuine change. Their watchful eyes served as a constant reminder to Derek of the scrutiny under which his redemption arc unfolded. With each passing day, Derek dedicated himself to the arduous task of rebuilding his reputation. He knew that trust was not granted freely. It had to be cultivated with consistency and integrity. Through transparent dealings and genuine interactions, Derek began to mend the fabric of trust that had been torn. It was a gradual process, marked by small victories and lessons learned, each step forward a testament to his commitment to change. Derek's perseverance began to bear fruit as he noticed a gradual increase in customers returning to his garage. The skepticism that once clouded their interactions started to dissipate, replaced by cautious optimism. Each successful repair and transparent transaction contributed to this slow but palpable shift. It was a testament to the power of genuine effort and the possibility of earning back trust through consistent, honest work. The ripple effects of Derek's change practices extended beyond individual clients to touch the broader community. Stories of his fairness, detailed explanations before any work was done, and no surprise billing began to circulate, painting a new picture of his business. This burgeoning reputation, built on the pillars of honesty and reliability, encouraged more people to give him a second chance, gradually restoring their faith in his services. In a surprising turn of events, Lisa emerged as one of Derek's most vocal supporters. Having witnessed firsthand his commitment to change and the tangible steps he had taken towards redemption, she shared her positive experience with others. Her endorsement, coming from a place of genuine acknowledgement of his efforts, lent Derek's business a credibility that it had sorely lacked. Lisa's advocacy became a key factor in swaying community opinion. The narrative of Derek's transformation, with Lisa's unexpected role as its advocate, began to bridge the divides within the community. Conversations that once centered around his past misdeeds shifted towards recognition of his genuine attempts at amends. This shift did not erase the past, but offered a path forward, illustrating how individual change can catalyze broader reconciliation and foster a renewed sense of unity and forgiveness. In quieter moments, Derek reflected on the journey he had undertaken. The ordeal had taught him invaluable lessons about the essence of integrity and the real cost of shortcuts. Honesty, he now understood, was not just the best policy for moral reasons, but the foundation of lasting business success. This introspection reinforced his commitment to maintaining these principles, valuing the respect of his community and the satisfaction of his customers above fleeting gains. In the following days, Derek noticed anomalies in his workspace, tools slightly out of place, equipment settings altered. Initially dismissed as forgetfulness, the accumulating irregularities began to paint a different picture. These disruptions, subtle yet deliberate, hinted at an unsettling possibility of sabotage. Each discovery, a piece of a larger puzzle, suggested someone's intent to undermine his efforts to rebuild. The pattern of tampering grew more evident, compelling Derek to reconsider the nature of the break-in. It was becoming clear that this was not mere vandalism, but a targeted effort to disrupt his business. The realization forced Derek to reevaluate the events leading up to the break-in, piecing together a timeline that suggested a calculated attempt to sabotage his path to redemption. In a turn of events that Derek could never have anticipated, Lisa confessed to being behind the break-in and the subsequent sabotage. Her admission, delivered with a mixture of regret and resolve, revealed her actions as a drastic measure intended to confront Derek with the real-world consequences of his past deceit. This revelation shattered any remaining illusions of the situation's simplicity. Lisa's explanation laid bare the depth of her motivations. She described her actions as born out of frustration and a longing for justice, aiming to force Derek to reckon with the impact of his dishonesty. Her plan, while extreme, was meticulously crafted to provoke a profound change in Derek, challenging him to face the ramifications of his actions and the importance of integrity. With candid openness, Lisa detailed her strategy to induce Derek's transformation. She admitted to orchestrating the sabotage not out of malice, but as a last resort to compel him to make genuine amends. Her calculated efforts were aimed at ensuring Derek understood the weight of his past misdeeds and took concrete steps toward ethical business practices, thereby holding him accountable in a way that mere words never could. Derek, confronted with Lisa's revelations, found himself at a crossroads. The depth of her actions, a reflection of the pain his own had caused, laid bare the stark reality of his past. This moment of truth was not just about facing the consequences of his deceit, but recognizing the profound impact of his actions on others, including Lisa, whose drastic measures spoke volumes. Lisa's firm stance on accountability resonated with Derek. Her insistence on his acknowledgement of past wrongdoings and a genuine commitment to change was a pivotal moment. This lesson in accountability, underscored by the lengths to which Lisa had gone to make her point, drove home the importance of taking full responsibility for one's actions and the critical need for personal and professional integrity. With the weight of her words hanging between them, Lisa presented Derek with a stark warning: the potential exposure of his deceitful practices if they were to continue. Armed with evidence, she made it clear that accountability extended beyond their conversation. This ultimatum underscored the gravity of the situation, compelling Derek to fully grasp the implications of his past behavior and the necessity of a new path forward. Shaken to his core by the encounter, Derek made a solemn vow to overhaul his approach to business. This commitment to honesty and fairness marked the dawn of a new era for him, both personally and professionally. Lisa's confrontation had served as a catalyst for profound reflection and change, propelling Derek towards a future where his actions would be guided by the principles of transparency and ethical conduct. As Derek embarked on this journey towards redemption, the initial steps were met with cautious optimism from the community. Guided by a renewed sense of purpose and the lessons learned from his ordeal, Derek's efforts to rebuild his business on a foundation of integrity and accountability began to take shape. The road ahead was long, but with each positive change, hope grew within the community that this new chapter would herald true and lasting transformation.